Well, howdy diddly dandy there, chums. 'Tis I, Captain of the Steves, and today, chums, for you guys out there in the viewerverse, this is a bit of an ideas video on how they could implement the relaxing mode inside of No Man's Sky. So if you don't know what the relaxing mode thing is all about, well, there was some latest news. There was an interview with Sean Murray where he talked about new game modes coming into No Man's Sky. One, you can do custom settings inside of a survival save or something, and they're doing a reworked survival mode, but they're also implementing a relaxing mode, which helps you get into all the new content from the previous years if you're coming back into No Man's Sky, and to make it not feel so overwhelming. So I was thinking, well, how could they do that and make it feel less grindy is another thing that Sean Murray said. I'm going to cover off 3 sort of ways that they can do that in this video. Heck yes, so here we go. Now, since Next, we've had our character models, and you've had the appearance modifier. So I'm thinking maybe the new relaxing mode could start in places where there is an appearance modifier. So that's in the Nexus, inside of stations, and you can also have them inside of your freighter or on a planetary base. I don't think they're going to start you on a planetary base. I mean, they might. They blinking could, couldn't they, basically? But I'm thinking maybe start you on the Nexus as my first point of call. So here I am on the Nexus in the appearance modifier in the Nexus. You can see other players running around, which is pretty darn cool anyhow. But at least on the Nexus, it kind of makes a bit of sense, because we know that Nada created the Synthesis companion, drawing some of the lore that we've had already, but maybe there could be something that greets you here, some sort of orb or some sort of hologram that you interact with, and it tells you different things like, yeah, please go around the Nexus, talk to all the NPCs. So yeah, it kind of feels more gamified that way. A lot of games start off with you creating your character, and then you walk around some sort of player hub area, and you get some mini fetch quests and things to do. So yeah, there's loads of NPCs here. I mean, they could pad these guys out. We've given you mini tutorial steps, or have you run different sorts of missions to do different things, and to slowly get you into the actual game, or not even slowly, to bring you up all sorts of stuff. I mean, Nada here has got like a mini lay lap sitting on the freaking table that he's working on. So, you know, we've got our own little sentinel sentries. Maybe talking to Nada opens up that path, and we go off and we get ourselves our own little sentinel drone or something, you know. And talking to Polo, maybe you say, well, yes, we've created your shell. I'm glad to see you've customized it, blah de blah de blah, and please go around the Nexus, introduce yourself to all the other NPCs. I mean, the Nexus is a very interesting place to start the game, and I think it'd be quite gripping. And also they could actually put in some story to say, you know, this world is a simulation, you're part of that simulation, and yes, we're trying to work out what's going on with the simulation. It seems to be collapsing, and you are an anomaly within inside of this universe, but be careful of the Atlas and the words that it says, blah de blah. And we've given you a starter ship, and you get given like a radiant pillar, and maybe there is a cutscene that takes you down to show you where your ship is actually parked. There's your ship, take flight when you're good and ready, but don't leave the Nexus until you are ready. That sort of shenanigans, you know. So I think the Nexus would be a very good place to start this off. You've also got the Nexus Cube down there inside the spatial anomaly that gives missions. So maybe after you've talked to all the NPCs, they might say, well, pick up a mission, run a mission, and you go down to your first planet. Or perhaps they say, well, you know, you need to get yourself a ship. Head on over to a frickin' station, and you hit up Mercury, you hit up this little console here, you pick a station of maybe 3 or 4 stations, and away you go. Boom! You head on through the teleporter over to a station, and then maybe the game starts there. Maybe you've got given a pocket full of units to go and buy a ship. Maybe you could buy a C-class sort of, I don't know, shuttle, or maybe a low-class fighter, or an explorer. So, second on that list was stations, because there's an appearance modifier on stations anyway. You've also got the missions agent on stations, and yes, they could give you a load of units, and you could go buy yourself maybe a C-class explorer, or a shuttle, or maybe even a low-class fighter of some kind, and just wait for them to fly in. And once they fly in, then you can start running missions. Or maybe you go over to the missions agent, and you choose a mission, and they give you choose maybe one of the missions here, but over here maybe it gives you a ship reward, and it actually gives you the ship before you start the mission, but then it gives you a secondary sort of item there as well. So you usually get 2 things anyway, but yeah, maybe it would give you a starter ship. So if you want to do an exploration mission, it would give you an explorer. If you want to do some sort of gathering resources mission, it might give you a low-class hauler, etc, etc, and maybe that's a good way of doing it. I don't know, but yeah, stations might make a good place to start, mainly because they've got a multi-tool in a cabinet, but then so too has the Nexus. The Nexus has a multi-tool cabinet as well. So maybe wherever you spawn, you're going to get a random sort of multi-tool from the cabinet as well, rather than having the little pistol one that you've got. So I think stations and the Nexus would make sense and make it feel a lot less grindy, and also you get to create your character from the start and it would feel a little bit more gamified, and they could tweak NPCs in these areas to give you some sort of backstory why you're there, give you some rhyme or reason, and give you some sort of missions to do. So I think that makes a lot of sense. Now the third place is on board a freighter. Okay, so the third and final one is on board of a freighter. Now we did have the Polestar Expedition, which started on your freighter and you slowly sort of built your character out from doing the Polestar Expedition, and I thoroughly enjoyed that one. It's probably one of my favourite expeditions to date because it was just so different, and I kind of feel that they could do this actually in game, because you've got your own little crew here, and also you can control your wingman here and also your frigate fleet, so you've got a couple of things that you can already be working towards in making yourself a little bit more OP. You've also got your freighter upgrade terminal here. Now all they really need to do is add in some kind of missions agent in here, or even add in some sort of expedition path that you're following from your actual freighter bridge commander or something, you know. There's ways and means of doing it. Again, they could give you a load of units and you could wait for ships to fly into your freighter and you can buy a ship. Now you just need an NPC up there to tell you to do that. Just wait for ships to dock with the freighter and buy yourself a ship. I mean, they could give you the Radiant Pillar as a starting ship in there anyway, couldn't they? Just do a quick simple away mission, or they could just add a teleporter that teleports you down to one of the planets from some sort of console. I mean, we've got the console anyway that discovers the areas in space on well, I've got one just upstairs. I'll go and show you which freaking console I mean. But yeah, so you can just discover a system just by hitting up the console. But what if that same console allowed you to teleport down to a planet, and then maybe there's some sort of bit of kit that you install on a planet to beam yourself back up to the actual freighter or something? I don't know, there's ways and means that they could implement this stuff, but like I said, they managed to do it with the expeditions and it worked well in expeditions, so maybe just mirror that slightly. And yes, you go around recruiting different sorts of crew and terminals, and you slowly build things out. Now yeah, the blueprint analyzer. So as long as you've got the blueprint analyzer, you can start sticking that in, and you can start getting all your base parts, you can start getting all your freighter parts, you can get all your technology bits and bobs, and yeah, it could be a lovely way to actually introduce a new player to the game that's a little bit more relaxed and a little less grindy. Because let's face it, if you go onto YouTube right now and you put in playing No Man's Sky for the first time, and you watch somebody sit down and play No Man's Sky for the first time, I'm betting you probably about 9 out of 10 of those players are probably going to die during that tutorial. Maybe not even just once, maybe twice or something, before they even manage to take off. Now, I bought No Man's Sky for some of my geeky sci-fi friends thinking they would love it. And the complaint that I had back is it felt too grindy, they didn't understand the tutorial, and they died on the planet to the point that they just didn't like it. They thought it was a grinding piece of mess, basically, because of their first hour of play, which just felt so disjointed. I was like, well, it changes. The game changes later on. But anyway, people, I'd love to hear your thoughts and feelings. How do you feel that they could work in this relaxing game mode? Add it in the comments. Until next time, goodbye, and goodbye again. Well, thank you very much for watching. If you like what you see, please hit a like and a subscribe, and I'd like to say a massive great big thank you to all of my backers over on Patreon and over on YouTube membership. Thanking you, backers! And if you want to support this channel, just don't skip the adverts. That throws revenue down my avenue. Or yeah, just stay with Captain Steve that little bit longer and hit something on this screen. There's merch here now too.